Cave exploration has always been one of the most exhilarating yet dangerous pursuits for adventurers around the world. The dark, unknown depths of the earth have captivated the human imagination for centuries, drawing those with an insatiable curiosity and a deep respect for nature to venture into the complex labyrinths hidden beneath the surface. Whether it's the breathtaking beauty of crystal formations, the thrill of uncharted passages, or the challenge of navigating tight, treacherous spaces, caving holds a unique allure. But as many cavers know, the same natural wonder that entices explorers can also conceal lethal dangers. Every year, countless caving expeditions take place, some of which go without incident, but others end in tragedy. Despite the best preparations, the most experienced guides, and the most advanced safety equipment, the hidden dangers of caves, ranging from sudden rock shifts to unexpected falls, floods, or getting lost, can turn even the most routine exploration into a life-or-death struggle. In this series of real-life stories, we delve into the fateful journeys of explorers who ventured deep into the darkness, never to return. These tales serve as stark reminders of the unpredictable nature of cave systems and the immense risks that come with exploring them. While caving can be a safe and rewarding activity for those who approach it with caution and respect, there are always forces beyond control, forces that can lead to life-shattering consequences. From tragic falls to unforeseen complications in remote, uncharted caves, each of these stories serves as a testament to the unyielding power of nature. As we recount the final, fateful moments of these explorers, we will reflect on the lessons learned from their experiences. These are not just cautionary tales, but stories of passion, bravery, and the pursuit of understanding the mysterious world that exists beneath our feet, no matter how perilous the journey may be. The tragic deaths in the Nutty Putty Cave. In 2009, the Nutty Putty Cave in Utah became the site of one of the most heart-wrenching cave accidents in history, a story that still lingers in the minds of those who know about it. It's a real story, one that demonstrates the dangers of cave exploration, even for someone who was highly experienced and fully aware of the risks, and it all unfolded in an unexpected, tragic way. The Nutty Putty Cave, located in the West Desert of Utah, had long been a favorite destination for cavers. It was known for its relatively easy-to-navigate passages and its peculiar clay-like walls that made the cave seem almost like a child's playhouse for explorers. It was a place people visited to enjoy the challenge of exploration, but also to appreciate the beauty of an underground world, with its narrow tunnels, interesting rock formations, and expansive rooms. People often visited it for a short day trip, making it a popular spot for families, novice spelunkers, and those who were seeking an adventure. But despite its accessibility and popularity, Nutty Putty Cave had a dark side. It was not a cave to be taken lightly. While many had enjoyed the thrill of exploring its passages, the cave's narrow corridors and tight spaces could easily become hazardous for someone who wasn't careful. It wasn't long before disaster struck. The story begins with an ordinary family man, John Jones, a 26-year-old father, husband, and aspiring doctor. John was from the Salt Lake City area and had always had a passion for caving. He'd been exploring caves since his teenage years and had become quite experienced. He knew the risks, and yet he was drawn to the allure of the underground world. John had visited Nutty Putty Cave several times before the incident, but this particular trip was different. It was November 2009, and he was there with some friends, enjoying the adventure like so many before him. The group explored the main tunnels of the cave, taking in the formations and exploring the various chambers. But the group had not ventured into the more dangerous areas of the cave yet. There was one passage in the cave, however, known as the birth canal, that required extra caution. It was a narrow, vertical passage that led into a tight, nearly impassable squeeze. John had heard about the passage from other cavers and had been curious about it, But he wasn't the first to attempt it. Others had made their way through before, but only after careful planning and preparation. Some even had to turn back once they realized the narrow passage was too difficult to navigate. For some unknown reason, John made a decision that day to enter the birth canal. He was fully aware of how tight the squeeze would be, but he felt confident. At first, the passage seemed manageable. He began crawling into the narrow opening, bending his body in ways that seemed unnatural. But that was the way of the cave. The walls of the birth canal were made of soft, sticky clay that seemed to cling to his body as he pressed forward. But things took a sudden, tragic turn. At some point during the crawl, John's body became wedged in the narrow passage. It happened so quickly that his friends did not fully understand what had happened. He had become stuck, his body trapped in the most inescapable position possible. His feet and legs were blocked, and he could not pull himself backward or forward. His head and shoulders were buried deep in the passage, leaving him unable to free himself. John's friends, initially not realizing the severity of the situation, tried to help. They tugged and pulled, attempting to shift his body in an effort to dislodge him from the position he was in. But the more they tried, the tighter the space seemed to become. The walls of the passage seemed to compress around him, making it increasingly impossible for anyone to help. His position was so precarious that it was becoming clear this was not going to be a simple rescue. The hours began to pass, and John's friends realized that they were in way over their heads. They called for help. A rescue operation was immediately initiated, and teams of experienced cavers, along with trained rescuers, rushed to the scene. But despite the urgency, the conditions inside the cave made the rescue incredibly difficult. The narrowness of the birth canal and the way John was wedged made it virtually impossible for rescuers to reach him. The walls were too tight, the angles too difficult to maneuver around. They attempted everything they could think of to free him, using ropes, tools, and other equipment to pry at the cave's clay walls, but there was no way to reach him. As the hours stretched on, the situation grew more dire. With each passing minute, it became increasingly clear that John's position was not just uncomfortable, but also life-threatening. As he remained trapped, his body began to suffer from the pressure. His air supply began to dwindle. The rescuers did everything they could to provide him with oxygen, but it wasn't enough. The rescue operation lasted for hours, and despite the best efforts of those involved, it became apparent that the chances of saving John were dwindling. The tightness of the cave, combined with the complexity of the rescue efforts, meant that they were losing valuable time. By the time they managed to reach him, it was too late. John Jones passed away while still trapped in the narrow passage. He had been stuck for over 28 hours. The tragedy devastated his family, friends, and the entire caving community. John was not only a dedicated explorer, but also a husband and a father. His death was a tragic reminder of the dangers inherent in cave exploration, no matter how experienced or prepared someone might be. After the accident, Nutty Putty Cave was permanently sealed to prevent further accidents. The tight passage that had trapped John, the birth canal, was deemed too dangerous for anyone to attempt again. The cave remained closed to the public, and the tragic story of John Jones served as a reminder of the risks that come with exploring the hidden depths of the earth. John's family, while devastated by his death, wanted to ensure that his legacy as an explorer was remembered. They set up a foundation in his name to promote cave safety and to help others understand the importance of being cautious when exploring caves. His tragic story is not just about the dangers of Nutty Putty Cave, but also about the unpredictability of life. Sometimes, no matter how prepared we are, things go wrong, and when they do, the consequences can be far-reaching. The accident at Nutty Putty Cave is a reminder to all those who explore the world beneath us. Cave exploration can be thrilling, but it must always be approached with caution and respect for the unknown. In the end, John Jones's story isn't just a tale of an unfortunate incident. It's a story of a man who loved adventure, a man who was taken too soon, but whose legacy lives on through the lessons learned from his death. His story is a tragic reminder of the risks of exploring hidden spaces and a cautionary tale for future adventurers. The tragic death of Bethany Bell in Lechuguilla Cave. Lechuguilla Cave, located in Carlsbad Caverns National Park in New Mexico, is one of the most spectacular and dangerous caves in the world. Famous for its breathtaking formations and extensive labyrinth of passages, Lechuguilla is not a cave for amateurs. With passages that wind for over 120 miles, the cave is known for its extreme depth, complex layout, and perilous conditions. And while it is one of the most beautiful caves in the world, it is also one of the most unforgiving. This was the setting for the tragic story of Bethany Bell, a promising young geologist with a deep love for caves. Her fascination with underground spaces began early in her life. Growing up in a family that frequently explored the natural wonders of the world, Bethany had developed a sense of adventure and a yearning to study and understand the geology of caves. By her mid-20s, Bethany had already completed extensive cave training and had even earned a degree in geology. She was no stranger to the risks of cave exploration, having been on numerous expeditions in the United States, some of which took her deep into the heart of remote caves. Bethany was part of a group of experienced cavers who had been given permission to explore the famous Lechuguilla Cave in 1996, which, at the time, was considered one of the most difficult caves to navigate due to its size and complexity. The group of 6 explorers, including Bethany, had been carefully planning the expedition for months, preparing for any eventuality. They had reviewed maps of the cave, researched the geological formations, and trained for any potential dangers. They knew the risks and were prepared for them. However, Lechuguilla Cave had its own plan. The group entered the cave on May 14, 1996, through a known entrance. The first few hours were uneventful. The group, led by a seasoned caver named John Phillips, moved steadily deeper into the cave, taking note of the spectacular formations around them. Lechuguilla is known for its rare and delicate crystals, towering stalactites, and pools of groundwater that look almost otherworldly. The group was awestruck by the beauty that surrounded them. But as they descended further into the cave, the tunnels began to change. The cave, though initially wide and spacious, became more treacherous. Narrow passages and steep drops began to appear, and the temperature started to drop. The air became thick, and the deeper they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere felt. The group pressed on, knowing that the true challenge of the cave lay in the depths where few had dared to explore. At around 9 p.m., the group reached a more remote section of Lechuguilla. This was a part of the cave that was less explored and known for its incredibly narrow, twisting passages. The group stopped to rest, but they were about to discover just how dangerous this part of the cave truly was. Bethany, eager to push her boundaries and explore further, decided to venture into a particularly narrow passage. This passage was known as the Spider Tunnel, a passage so tight and winding that only the smallest and most experienced cavers could navigate it. Despite the warnings from her companions, Bethany, confident in her abilities, decided to enter the tunnel. She crawled through it, carefully and methodically, making her way forward into the unknown. But what Bethany didn't know was that this section of the cave had recently been affected by a shift in the rock formations. The walls of the passage, though still tight, had become more unstable in recent weeks. It was a dangerous situation, one that had not been accounted for in the cavers' previous preparations. Bethany, in her eagerness, did not realize that she had ventured too far into the tunnel. At some point during her crawl, the narrow passage became even more constricted, and she became wedged tightly between 2 large boulders. The rocks pressed against her body, making it impossible for her to move. The passage was so tight that she could neither push herself forward nor backward. She was stuck, trapped in an increasingly perilous situation. At first, Bethany tried to free herself. She wiggled and twisted, attempting to inch her way out of the tight spot. But the more she struggled, the more stuck she became. Her companions, realizing she had not returned, immediately began to search for her. They called out her name, their voices echoing in the damp, cold air of the cave. But all they could hear in response was the oppressive silence of the darkened passages. After what felt like an eternity, they found her, still wedged in the spider tunnel. Panic began to set in. Bethany's situation was dire. The narrowness of the passage made it impossible to maneuver or to get the right leverage to help her out. They immediately called for a rescue team, but the tightness of the passage and the remote location of the group made it difficult for rescuers to reach them quickly. The rescue operation began immediately, but due to the complexity of the terrain and the dangerous conditions of the cave, it took hours for help to arrive. The team that was dispatched to rescue Bethany faced tremendous challenges in navigating the winding and narrow corridors of Lechuguilla. The tight spaces, steep descents, and complex rock formations made it nearly impossible for them to reach Bethany quickly. They had to take extreme care to avoid further complicating the situation or putting themselves in danger. When the rescue team finally reached her, they found that Bethany's situation had deteriorated. The pressure of being trapped for hours in the narrow space had caused severe physical distress. Rescuers worked tirelessly to free her, but they were faced with the crushing reality that the situation was much worse than anyone had anticipated. After nearly 14 hours of strenuous effort, Bethany was finally freed from the tunnel. Tragically, despite all the efforts to save her, Bethany Bell was found to have passed away due to asphyxiation. The narrow space she had been trapped in had restricted her ability to breathe, and by the time rescuers reached her, it was too late. Bethany's death left a deep impact on the caving community, especially in the Carlsbad area. Her tragic accident was a stark reminder of the unpredictable and often unforgiving nature of caves. Despite her extensive training and experience, Lechuguilla's hidden dangers had proven too much for even the most prepared explorers. In the aftermath of her death, there was an outpouring of grief from her family, friends, and the caving community. Bethany's death sparked discussions about safety protocols in cave exploration, as well as the need for more thorough pre-expedition planning in caves with narrow, difficult passages. Bethany's family, despite their immense sorrow, wanted to ensure that her love for the natural world was remembered. They helped fund initiatives aimed at promoting cave safety and providing training to other cavers about the dangers of tight passages and the importance of proper equipment and preparation. They also worked with the Carlsbad Caverns National Park to ensure that other explorers would be better informed about the dangers that Lechuguilla posed. Bethany Bell's death serves as a reminder of the inherent dangers of cave exploration, no matter how experienced or well-prepared someone may be. Caves, though often beautiful and captivating, can also be unpredictable and unforgiving. Her story continues to be a sobering lesson to those who seek to explore the depths of the earth, a reminder of the need for caution and respect for the powerful forces of nature. The tragic death of Tom Moulton in Pecos River Caves. The Pecos River Caves, located in the desert of southeastern New Mexico, are known for their striking yet hazardous features. With vast chambers and winding, narrow passages, they have long drawn the attention of cave explorers, scientists, and spelunkers alike. But despite their beauty and wonder, these caves can be treacherous, hiding dangers that only the most seasoned cavers can truly understand. It was in these very caves that a seasoned and well-respected caver named Tom Moulton tragically lost his life, serving as yet another grim reminder of how unpredictable and perilous cave exploration can be. Tom Moulton, a 42-year-old engineer from Albuquerque, New Mexico, had been passionate about spelunking for most of his adult life. A member of a local caving club, Tom had explored caves across the United States and had built a reputation for his careful approach to caving. He was known for his meticulous planning and safety protocols before embarking on any expedition. Tom's knowledge of cave formations, geology, and rescue techniques made him a valuable asset in the caving community. His friends and peers trusted him deeply, and he was often the one to take less experienced cavers under his wing. Tom was highly respected in the caving world, not only for his skill but also for his commitment to promoting safety. In the summer of 2006, Tom and a small group of fellow cavers set out to explore a lesser-known section of the Pecos River Caves. This particular area had intrigued Tom for months. It was known to be both challenging and beautiful, with the potential to reveal new geological features and formations that had yet to be studied. The group, though experienced, was not taking the exploration lightly. They carefully reviewed maps, checked their equipment, and discussed the routes they would take. The Pecos River Caves, like many cave systems, held dangers, particularly in the form of tight spaces, unstable rock formations, and underground water channels. But Tom and his companions were prepared, having trained extensively for cave exploration in these kinds of conditions. The group entered the cave with high spirits, excited by the possibilities of discovering new chambers and formations. They followed a well-established route initially, marveling at the impressive stalactites and stalagmites that adorned the cave walls. The atmosphere inside was eerily quiet, save for the sound of their breath and the occasional drip of water. As they continued deeper into the cave, the environment became more difficult to navigate. The passageways narrowed, forcing the group to squeeze through tight spaces. Still, everyone remained confident, knowing that these were the challenges they had trained for. However, as they ventured further into the cave system, the group came across a passage that was not as familiar to them. This part of the cave was more remote, and it had not been explored as frequently by other cavers. The narrow tunnel led downward at a steep angle, creating a long, tight crawl that was difficult to navigate. Tom, ever the leader and always cautious, suggested that the group stay behind as he would assess the situation on his own. He wanted to make sure the path was safe before proceeding further. Tom crawled through the passage alone, his light shining on the walls as he slowly and carefully advanced. He had done this before, many times, and he was confident in his abilities. He was aware of the risks, but he also knew that this was part of the adventure. This was what he had trained for. He managed to reach the end of the passage, where the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. But as he moved around the chamber, something went terribly wrong. While navigating through the cavernous space, Tom's foot slipped on a wet rock, causing him to lose his balance. In an instant, his body was thrown forward, and he fell. The chamber he had entered was not a safe place. The rock floor was uneven, with jagged edges that jutted up from the ground. Tom fell into a hidden pit, one that had been masked by the darkness. The drop was only about 15 feet, but it was enough to cause significant injury. Tom landed awkwardly, his body taking the brunt of the fall. The impact sent a sharp pain through his body, and he immediately felt his leg snap under the force. Trapped in the dark and alone, Tom tried to move, but quickly realized that the injury was far worse than he had anticipated. His leg was badly broken, and the pain was intense. Worse still, he was unable to climb out of the pit, and his position was precarious. His flashlight, which had been knocked out of his hand during the fall, flickered dimly before it went out entirely, plunging him into complete darkness. Tom's mind raced as he tried to assess the situation. He knew he needed help, but he also knew how difficult it would be for his team to locate him. With no means of communicating and no way to move, Tom was forced to rely on his training and experience. Minutes turned into hours, and still Tom's team did not find him. They had initially thought he had simply gone ahead, exploring a section they had not yet reached, but as time passed, they began to grow concerned. They retraced their steps, calling out for Tom, but there was no response. The silence of the cave was unnerving, and they soon realized that something was wrong. The group reached the narrow passage where Tom had gone ahead, but he was nowhere to be found. Panic set in. Finally, the group decided to call for help. A rescue team was dispatched immediately, but the situation was complicated by the remote location and the difficulty of navigating through the cave. The Pecos River Caves were not an easy system to traverse, and every moment counted. The rescue operation was slow, but eventually a team of experienced cave rescue professionals arrived. They knew the risks and were well trained, but even they faced a tough challenge in locating Tom. By the time the rescue team reached Tom, it was clear that he was in a critical state. He had suffered a severe leg fracture, and the fall had caused internal injuries that were beyond repair. Despite the best efforts of the rescue team, Tom Moulton was pronounced dead at the scene. He had succumbed to his injuries before help could reach him. The death of Tom Moulton sent shockwaves through the caving community. He had been a leader and a mentor to many, and his loss was deeply felt by his friends and peers. His death also highlighted the dangers of cave exploration, no matter how experienced one might be. Despite his knowledge, his careful planning, and his experience, the unforeseen dangers of the Pecos River Caves had proven too much. Tom's family and friends, devastated by the loss, later worked with local caving organizations to establish better safety protocols for future expeditions. They emphasized the importance of maintaining clear communication during cave exploration, ensuring that everyone in a group is aware of the risks, and promoting safety measures when navigating unknown or remote sections of a cave system. Tom's story serves as a solemn reminder that cave exploration, while exhilarating, is not without its dangers. Even the most experienced cavers can fall victim to the unpredictable elements of the underground world. His death, though tragic, contributed to an increased focus on caving safety, and his legacy continues to impact the caving community today. As with all caving accidents, the loss of life is a reminder to all who venture into the deep, dark places of the earth that respect for the cave and its unpredictable nature is paramount. It is a sobering lesson that even the most careful and prepared explorers are not immune to the risks posed by these beautiful yet perilous natural formations.